Hi guys, it's Kristen from rascalrides.com. Today I'm going to talk about the best first pedal bike for your child. So these are for kids transitioning from a balance bike and between about 2.5 and 4 years old. These are 12 and 14-inch bikes, and they're for kids who are just really ready to start pedaling, to start going without training wheels. I'm going to give you my 5 favorite pedal bikes for kids this age, and then I'm also going to give you a couple of runner-ups. And I'll also talk about how, regardless of the brand of bike that you pick, what you should be looking for, things like no training wheels, things like a freewheel instead of a coaster brake. So I'll talk about that at the end. So the bike taking our #1 spot is the Woom 2. It's without a doubt our favorite bike for kids who are just learning to pedal. And we're not afraid to call it the very best 14-inch kids bike on the market. The quality of the bike is worth every single penny you're going to spend on this bike. No detail has been overlooked. It has color-coded brake levers, so kids can tell the difference between their right brake and their left brake, and they don't end up with that over-the-bars situation. It has upright geometry that makes pedaling really easy for kids. This is the bike that my son actually learned to ride on. We had put him on a couple other pedal bikes and he'd gotten some pedal strokes in, but this is the bike where he took off flying and just went overnight from being a balance bike rider to being a pedal bike rider. It's also extraordinarily light, which is probably why it's our favorite bike. It weighs just over 11 pounds, which is phenomenal. And I'll talk a little bit more later on about why weight is so important for kids at this age. The lighter the bike, the better. We also really like the 14-inch wheels on the Woom 2 as opposed to a 12-inch bike. It just allows kids to get up and over obstacles a lot easier, lets them go faster. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but for like 3 and 4-year-olds, Woom 2 is as good as it gets. If you don't want to go any further, you can hit pause here and just go get the Woom 2. It's truly the best. You can't do any better. The #2 bike on our list is the Cleary Gecko. Now this is our very favorite bike for kids who are like really young and already ready to pedal. So if you have a 2.5-year-old who has already been riding their balance bike since they were 12 months old, and they've got the balance and they've got the physical ability to do it, this is the bike to teach them to pedal on. And yes, it is possible for a 2.5-year-old to learn to pedal and to do it well. So things we like about this bike is the tiny little size. It has easy to pull Tektro brake levers. It comes in a Freewheel option, so you don't have to bother with coaster brakes. And it's also great for riding whatever kind of terrain you want. So if you are a mountain biking family and you are already ready to go take your child on some single track, this bike will do it. But it's also great just for riding on the sidewalk and the driveway, around the neighborhood. So no matter what you want to do with your child, this bike is going to make it possible for them to do that. Again, it's not our favorite bike for kids who are already 3.5 or 4 years old, but for 2.5 or just a barely 3-year-old or for really tiny petite children, this is the best bike you're going to get. The bike in our #3 spot is the Prevelo Alpha One, and it is Prevelo's smallest pedal bike. It's 14-inch wheels on it. It has an optional and highly recommended freewheel kit, which we'll talk about again later. The rest of the bike is built up with super high quality components, including Kenda tires and easy to operate Tektro handbrakes. It is just a really pretty bright bike with that brushed aluminum. It looks like the grown-up bike. So if you are a bike lover, you're really going to love this bike. It looks fast. Kids like it. This was also one of the first bikes that my son was able to really take off on. In our #4 spot is the Spawn Yoji. If you are a mountain biking family, this is the bike for you. If you're not a mountain bike family, you can probably skip over this one because it's definitely more oriented towards off-road riding. It is a bit pricey, like all good mountain bikes are, but the high quality components and low weight make it worth the price. The Yoji has real off-road tires, Tektro brakes, and is built up to a mere 13 pounds. If you want to go to the pump track or go mountain biking, this is your bike. You don't need to look any further. In our number 5 spot is the Pello Romper. This is a 14-inch bike also. It has really nice beefy tires, so whatever kind of terrain your child wants to ride in, if they're, riding off the driveway into the gravel and into the grass, this bike's going to be able to handle it without any crashes. It's a bike we really like just for the price tag. It has the high quality of some of the other bikes on this list without quite as high of a price. The paint job is really pretty on the bike. It comes in orange or hot pink. So whatever your child's preference is, it has a nice, beautiful frame for them. It has really nice components on it, especially, again, when you compare it to the good price. It has a Cane Creek headset, Kenda tires, aluminum A-head stem. It's such a good bike at such a good price that it should definitely be on your short list of considerations. So these bikes aren't in our top 5, but should still be considered. The first one is the Frog 43. Frog is a really great kids bike company out of the UK, and we don't see them as often in the US, but that should really change because they are great bikes. They come in really cute paint schemes, which, especially for young kids like 3 years old, why not get them a really adorable bike? Another one's the Commencal Ramones. Commencal is known for their adult mountain bikes, but this is a 14-inch bike that looks cool enough to hang with the grown-ups. It doesn't just look good, it rides well as well. It offers Tektro handbrakes with no coaster, a comfortable saddle, and V tires. Best of all, it's far more affordable than most of the bikes out there with a Freewheel. In fact, it's only $259, so if you're on a budget or if you want to shop locally at your local Commencal dealer, this is a good pick. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about just what you should look for when you're choosing a good bike for a 2.5 to a 4-year-old. The very first one is to understand what bike size they need. If your child is 2.5 or they're just nearing their 3rd birthday, they're probably going to need a 12-inch bike because it has the smallest frame size. And again, my top pick for those really tiny riders is the Cleary Gecko. But once they are 3 or 4, I would start looking at a 14-inch bike. 14-inch wheels are able to roll up like cracks from the sidewalk a little easier. They're able to keep up. So if you're going for a family ride with older kids, you're going to be able to do a lot better on that 14-inch bike as opposed to a 12-inch bike. The other important thing to think about is that each child is different size, right? So one child might be turning 3 and they're already really tall, and they might already be ready for a 16-inch bike. We've got other kids who are 5 years old and they are, for whatever reason, really, really short, and they're still going to need to be on one of these 14-inch bikes. So the best thing you can do is measure your child's inseam. You want to make sure, especially for a first bike, that your child's inseam is at least as long as the minimum seat height. That's because when your child hasn't learned to pedal yet, they need to be able to put their feet flat on the ground. So don't buy a bike that has a 17-inch minimum seat height when your child's inseam is only 15 inches. Look for a bike where their inseam and the minimum seat height match. After size, we think the weight is the single most important factor in picking a bike for your child. When I'm comparing 2 bikes, I'm always going to pick the lightest one. So even these bikes both have equal components, the lightest one, regardless of the price, is going to be better. It makes a huge difference in your child's enjoyment level and how long they can ride. Look for a bike that's no more than 30% of your child's body weight. It's a really tough thing to do. Of all the bikes on my list, the Woom 2 is the lightest. It's also my son's favorite when he was that age, and I don't think that's a coincidence. Young kids maybe weigh like 30 pounds. You don't want to buy a bike that's going to weigh 15 or 20 pounds. You want to buy a big bike like the Woom 2 that weighs 11 pounds. That's going to be about 30% of their body weight. The next thing I want to mention is that you get what you pay for, you guys. I hear so many parents say, I need to find a bike that costs less than $100. Like most things in life, the more you spend on a bike, the better quality it's going to be, and that's just the truth. If you go to Walmart or to Target or wherever and you buy a bike, it's going to be really heavy. It's going to fall apart quickly. It's going to end up in a landfill. Don't do that to your child, and don't do that to our earth. The good news is that when you buy a high quality bike that costs a little more, it's going to be a good investment. If you have younger kids, you're going to be able to pass it on to them. When those younger kids are done with it, you're going to be able to sell it on Craigslist. The other thing to note is that a lot of the bikes on this list, like Woom, Prevelo, Pello, they have trade-up programs. Some of those are membership programs and some of them are just free. So once you start your child on a 12-inch or a 14-inch bike, you're going to be able to trade up to the 16-inch bike for a better price. So it's worth spending the extra money up front. We've seen so many parents who got a crappy, huffy bike for their child. They never learned how to ride. They were unhappy on the bike. And then later on, they bought the more expensive bike and their child took off. And they wish they hadn't wasted their money in the first place on that huffy. So, if you really only have $100 to spend, go spend that $100 by finding a good bike on Craigslist or at a local bike swap or on a Facebook group, as opposed to going to Walmart to pick up that. The next thing that you should look for when shopping for a bike is what kind of brakes it has. Does it have coaster brakes or does it have a freewheel? And a lot of these nice bikes are going to come automatically with a coaster brake, but you can buy an upgrade kit to get a freewheel. And I highly, highly, highly recommend buying a bike with a freewheel. The reason being is that coaster brakes actually hinder kids from learning to pedal. So when they're pedaling, they're going to take a little back pedal and they're going to come to a stop and they're going to fall over. Kids who just learned to bike without a coaster learn that pedaling motion a lot faster. The other benefit is just having kids learn those handbrakes at a young age. That's what they're going to use in life. Adult bikes have handbrakes. Why wouldn't you start teaching your child to use handbrakes too? And we really think that kids as young as like 2.5 years old are perfectly capable of using a handbrake. My son used to learn to use them. It's also a good idea to pick a balance bike ahead of time with handbrakes, so when they finally switch to a pedal bike, they can use them. But even if they haven't started on a balance bike with handbrakes, we'd still recommend starting them on a pedal bike with handbrakes. Another thing that we're going to say that's a little controversial is stop using training wheels. Just skip the training wheels. None of the bikes on our top 5 list have training wheels. And that's good for good reason. You don't really want your child to learn to ride with training wheels. It's going to make it hard for them to ride on a sidewalk. If you've ever seen a kid on a sidewalk, they're constantly getting their training wheels off-centered. It's a dangerous experience. It makes them less likely to be able to go fast and keep up with everybody. So just don't use those training wheels. If your child hasn't already mastered a balance bike, get them a balance bike first, and then transition to a pedal bike later. Or if you think they're really close to already being able to ride a pedal bike without training wheels, then go ahead and get the pedal bike, take off the wheels or take off the pedals, and just have them use that pedal bike like a balance bike until they've got the hang of it. Don't use the training wheels. So thanks for watching today. I will say that if you want to learn more about any of these bikes, head on over to our website, rascalrides.com, and you can find detailed reviews of each of them. You can also find a comparison chart. So all those bikes I talked about today, you can find out their prices and their weights and frame material and minimum seat height post and all that kind of stuff. So go over to rascalrides.com to find out even more information to help you make a wise decision. We'd also appreciate it if you hit subscribe so you see all of our videos, all of our video reviews, all of our tips. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out in the comments below or to head over to our website and get our email. We're happy to help you pick the very best bike for your child. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.